Sorry.
This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, you know, just we're gonna have to go back and rediscuss and redo that whole motion and re-vote it if we don't have it written down anywhere.
I wrote it down. We're good.
We're good. We wrote it down. Okay, cool. Oh, I hate to waste that.
Are we going to re-vote it for the recorder?
No, we're fine. I have it recorded. It was unanimous. I wrote it down.
Okay. It's unanimous. Moving on to item number 4, the paving update. Jesus, tell us about the paving update.
So there's not a whole lot of update, only because it's too cold for us to do anything right now. We have to have our ground temperature at MAG standard says 50 degrees and rising. It's obviously been a little colder than that. So we haven't done any paving up to this point. I can tell you, though, that one of the roads that we have added to our plan is Art Avenue. Art Avenue is pretty beat up, and so we'll go and add that one to the few roads that we're going to do here before the end of the year. Again, for the new members, so we'll do Art Avenue. We'll do Douglas Street, I believe, and then Campbell is another one that we're going to do, those 3, and then we'll hopefully finish off. What are the roads here? I can't remember. I got to pull up my map here. I can't remember the name of the roads. We are going to finish off. Where are we at here? I apologize. D'Autremont and Briggs. Those are the other 2. So we'll finish those off.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Going from the Vistas to Bisbee Road. So those are the ones that we have for our plan. And anything more that we do, we'll get on, and we definitely have a few dollars left in our budget that we planned for. So we'll do as much as we can.
Would this be a time to ask you about finishing paving around the pool at Higgins Hill Park?
That is, you can ask. Yeah, I mean, we don't have. It's something that we could. It's something that we can do. It would probably be, because that's such a small section there. It would be something that we had a little bit of funding, like right at the end, we could punch that out real fast. So because it is a small section. Normally, what we do is a good, maybe an 1/8 to a 1/4 mile is where our sections are. Smaller sections, and those typically run about $20,000 to $30,000 when we do those. So, but this is a small section. This is something, what you're referring to is something that we could add when we have. Hey, we still have a little bit left. Let's go ahead and finish this off. So we could.
Okay.
I have a question on paving.
Sure.
I think you bought a new oil truck for Fog Seal. Have you, which is a cold weather thing? Have you been playing with that toy, or?
we are definitely trying. I've been on them. I say this is the perfect time to do it. Unfortunately, we've had some other projects, more specifically our city hall, that we've been trying to get in here since before our move. So our streets guys have been kind of busy with that, but it is a priority. We are going to use that, and it should be something we do during this time. You're right, absolutely right.
I'm looking at a document that has the City of Bisbee street repair, and there's really nothing listed on there for 2021. We used to have a list of roads that were going to be repaired. Are you still keeping a list like that?
No, we don't use that list. Our list is now on iWork. Our iWork has all of our budgeting on there. We've got all of our recorded maintenance on there, so that we can go in and whenever we do new maintenance, we document it there, so that way it essentially tells us what needs to be done next. So no, that list that you're referring
Well,
to.
I have something to add to that too for Larry too. Well, we initially had this really big sheet that had everything listed out for the first 6.5 or 7 years, but the 8th or 9th year, the 8th year, we didn't really have anything listed. We tried to get everything done in the first so many years so that last year would be left open to do things like what Cynthia was talking about in other areas like that. We'd have a year of when we'd have the tax money to use to, and then go back and fix maybe some things that needed to be touched up. But that was done by design and not having a list of streets for the last year.
Thank you, Mr. Day. And then the other thing I'd like to add is, I did mention iWork. We're getting ready to come into our budget season. In fact, I just got an email from our finance department. We're getting ready to start that. I can use iWork, and that's something that will most likely come up in our next meeting. Is I'm going to present to you all a proposal for our next year's paving, so that you will have that, and it'll come from iWork. That's exactly what we bought that program for. So you'll have an updated list for our next fiscal year.
I wanted to access iWorks on my computer. How would I?
So what anybody can do is you can go and put in a request. You can do it from our website, or you can create a login, and you can do any type of request. It doesn't even have to be for Public Works. If you needed to do something for police or fire or wherever it may be, that will come in through us. And if it's for police or fire or any other department, we can forward those requests on. We can document any kind of work order. You won't be able to access modifications. You won't have that kind of access so that you can view the pavement condition index or those types of things. You all as members can, or anybody for that matter, if a resident wanted to set up an appointment and I could show them different types of things, I'd be more than happy to do so. But you all as members, I would think that you all would have some sort of interest in that. So I can share that with you.
So there's no way of really logging on and viewing it.
Not as a somebody that doesn't have access to the computer, to the backside, the actual data. No, you wouldn't be able to see that.
At our next meeting, you said we would have a list of the streets that were going to be paved.
I can have that for you for our next meeting. Absolutely, I can. I shared with you what we have going for this fiscal year, and for our next meeting, when we get for budgeting, I can share with you all what iWorks is showing for us for our budget, and we can together work through and decide, hey, maybe this road needs to be more moved up or however. But that's something that was the idea behind purchasing this program, is so that we can all work together and present something to City Council that says we need this much money for pavement maintenance.
We always used to have that. We always used to have a list of the roads that were going to be paved this season.
Yeah.
And
so I don't know. No, that was a list of roads that was put together by people. I don't know who was on that list that put together. Maybe Mr. Day.
Last surviving person. Yeah.
But what it was based on, I have no idea. I mean,
there was a huge study done many years back before even the beginning of this session of Streets and Infrastructure went 7 years ago. So, yeah, some big study was done, and then they went and figured out which streets were failed the worst, and they basically went on. They made a list at the time, which this was back in like 2006 or 7, something like that, real way back then. But they had a list of streets they considered failed. That's what they based that initial list off of, was the streets that were considered failed at the time. Obviously, more streets have become failed since then. So This is the one that Susan Blackburn complains that we never made. We quit sticking to that list. And I don't know what happened to it. They had a pre-plan out there for about the first, like I said, the first 6.5 years, and they wanted to leave the last year and a half of the 8-year tax thing. Doing the stuff we had to.
Okay. Well, we can move on to lights on Highway 80. I researched that after our last meeting, and I talked to Arizona Department of Transportation as well as the electric company and Jesus. And as it turns out, those lights around the pit, I think, are still owned by Freeport-McMoRan, in the same way that the fence is still owned by Freeport-McMoRan. They gave a right-of-way or an easement, but the fixtures and equipment didn't transfer with that. So I contacted the chief of the Freeport-McMoRan, and he said that was different than the information he had, and he looked into it, but they're short-handed. There's been a lot of retirement since the summer, so there's just a skeleton. I'm hoping that I'll back from them within 60 days, so we can talk about that at the next meeting. The electric company says they're not going to force us to get new, or anyone to get new light poles. Heads can be replaced. The lights, $1,000 a month.
Hey, Larry, is that you?
Can you hear me? One of the things we need to decide is we have to replace the lights. Replace 10 lights or 5 lights. 5 lights was the minimum. And there was also a fee for having the traffic go around the light application while it's being done. Well, that's a terrible sound.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Monica. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you.
You got echoes.
If anyone has a speaker on without headphones, that will cause an echo.
There, I think that's going to fix it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, good. Monica, did you have something to say about the lights?
No, not at this time. I've been so busy working to try to get on here.
Okay, well, welcome. We're making our way through the agenda today. Do you have the agenda in front of you?
Yeah, I have the agenda, yes.
Okay, good. Well, we were just saying that the lights on Highway 80 around the open pit mine are probably may well be owned by Freeport-McMoRan, and they're researching it, and I'm hoping to hear back from them within 60 days so we can discuss it at our next meeting. The option seems to be we can replace 5 lights at $250 a light, or 10 lights, same $250 a light, and then they'll be replaced with LED lights instead of high pressure sodium lights, and they can be operated and maintained for $11 a month each. And I think that that's something that the Streets and Infrastructure Committee really ought to consider very seriously. We can talk more about that. There's a one-time charge for traffic control while the lights are being changed out. The electric company wanted me to think it was a $5,000 fee that had to be paid to Arizona Department of Transportation. Arizona Department of Transportation said that the traffic, safety was always left up to the subcontractor. So that would be the electric company that is going to be changing the lights out. So I don't know. But if we decide to get 5 lights and we have to do 5 lights later, we'll have to pay twice for the traffic calming or the traffic safety. And then, or we can just do 5 lights and go with 5 high-pressure sodium lights and 5 LED lights, and that wouldn't cost more than $1,100 or $1,200. But I think we ought to discuss that at the next meeting when we hear back from Freeport-McMoRan.
I think you're I think you're accurate.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last comment.
I just said I think you're accurate. What you said, $5,000 for traffic control, and then the replacement of the lights. So
yeah.
Okay. So this is, yeah, we'd be requesting of Jesus that he put it into the budget and the city council approved it. That's how this money would get spent to do this project. Is that correct?
No. Well, $5,000 for traffic control. Once we get up over $5,000, typically that has to go before council. That's our procurement processes. In this case, I would want to bring this before council to make sure that this is something that, with the recommendation, if this is what you all want to do and you want to do a recommendation, I would bring that before council and let them know. One reason I would want that is we would be lighting an ADOT right-of-way. We don't own it. We don't have any right-of-way, so we're taking on some sort of liability when we do that. So that's something that I would, if you all want to do the recommendation, we can talk about it the next time after we get hear back from Freeport. I would feel more comfortable. I wouldn't want to do that on my own. I would want to make sure that the city council is backing that decision.
And this has come up as a concern because citizens who walk along, this would be premature to the other thing that's going on there, which is this whole, whether there's going to be a new trail, whatever.
So I guess, again, let me give a little bit of an update real quick because for the new members, a few months back, it was APS approached me, said that there's a need to repair those lights. Again, the $5,000 for traffic control, replacing the lights, it was going to be upwards of about $14,000. We have 14 lights that actually go around there. When they approached me about that, I questioned why we were lighting ADOT. We were paying for lights on ADOT right-of-way. It's not city right-of-way. And so I did some research, and Mr. Stone has done his research also, and I believe his research is accurate. My question is still, why would the city pay to light an ADOT right-of-way?
Which is exactly what I would ask. Why?
So at that point, I decided that was my decision. I did say we're turning it off. Now we can go the other way. That's fine. But I believe Mr. Pollack has something.
Thank you. You did bring that before the council, and we turned it down for that very reason.
Okay. Well, we can have the discussion. If it's something, more information can never hurt. So we can get that information from Freeport, and you or a committee, and you guys can make that recommendation if you feel that that's what you want to do.
I'm in full support of replacing the light bulbs myself. When we have people killed by cars on that same highway, and we have different bureaucracies just passing the buck, I don't think that's an acceptable attitude. To have, you talk about liability going one way, liability going the other for different projects and different things that we bring up. That kind of attitude I just can't accept. So, whether it's water flow coming off of a street or lights, we have to be consistent and serve our citizens that pay taxes.
Well, Ben,
Cynthia wants to speak.
right. Ben, I hear what you're saying. I just have a couple of questions that are related to this discussion. The first would be, it's going to come up on number 7, discussion of update of the multi-use path. How I might relate that project, and are we talking about a stopgap where we reestablish lights because the city council has voted, as we just heard at some point in time when I wasn't paying attention, to turn them off for cost, or to answer the question of, fine to say our citizens are walking along there, but mostly they're used because it's a state. It's not our citizens, it's the citizens of the world that are using them. And so the question of what costs we can incur with our limited budget as the city of Bisbee, to me, is still a question. And also, if there's a multi-path and a bunch of people looking at that project, then that might mean whether we light it or not goes on hold for a little while, because if it's $15,000 or $20,000, maybe that's not the best use of that $20,000. So I understand where you're coming from, but I also think there's a lot of other issues around something like doing lights on a state highway, in terms of liabilities, in terms of who are we really paying our good money to, 10 Bisbee people and 10,000 strangers that pay taxes to the state. I mean, I think we could put pressure on the state for the multi-use path and get the city to put that pressure by having the mayor and council vote on this is a good project, but I'm not sure we backing up should recommend paying for something that I can't quite see how it benefits citizens of Bisbee. I mean, because
Jesus, did the city of Bisbee formerly, pay $11 a month for each light to keep those lights lit? Was it the city of Bisbee that was getting the bill for that until we decided to turn them off?
Yes, sir.
And like as I say, you're talking about $250 for changing a high pressure sodium lamp into a LED lamp, and so the number isn't 14,000. The number's closer to 3,000. And I think that lighting the streets is one of the things that city governments do. And it's not like I know Jesus in the past has said that he doesn't really want to invite people to use a bicycle path that hasn't been constructed yet because, the lighting is on. But I think that we're not inviting them, we're just not prohibiting them. If you're going to allow pedestrians to walk on the side of the road, and you're going to allow a cyclist or a skateboarder or a scooter, on the side of the road, or, somebody that's changing a tire or pulled over by the police, I think, $11 for each, for 11 lampposts, you're talking, $125 a month. I think that's really affordable for the safety of the people that pass through there. It's, there's a lot going on there. You're turning left, you're turning right, you're merging lanes, you're going downhill. There's people pulling in and out of the overlook. And certainly, the only thing that's lit at that overlook is the American flag. You're going to go there at night and the lights are off, and we have a full moon tonight, but what about the dark of the moon? I don't know. We'll talk about this more on the next meeting, but I was going to suggest that we consider whether, if we decide to put the lights back on, that we want to replace 5 lights, the 5 lights that don't work, with LED lights at a cost of $1,200, or whether we want to do 10 lights at a cost of $2,500. So that's something for us to think about. If you haven't driven through there at night, it's you ought to drive through there at night to see how that's going. To see what. Our next item was going to be the discussion of financial update and review. I don't have anything to add about that at this time. If there's anyone else that wants to discuss that, we can. But I was thinking we could discuss the update of the multi-use path around the pit. Was there anyone else that went on that, webinar or, video chat last Friday, or was I the only one that was there for that?
Bingo.
I missed that too, but I would appreciate an update on that item.
Well, they had a survey that was answered by about 175 people that, occasionally walked up and down there or biked up and down there, or and the number one concern of everybody that responded, the 175 people that responded to the survey, was lighting was the number one thing that they were thinking needed to be improved even before the multi-use path. There was talk that they want to, in the future, it didn't seem like it was going to be anything that was going to happen soon. There was going to be another discussion in May after they get some more feedback from the community, and they'll discuss the pros and cons of their initial design thoughts. And they were thinking about taking, one lane of that downhill road, 2-lane road, and turning it into 2-lane. They believe it's very important to have one ascending lane and one descending lane that would be shared both by cyclists and walkers. And that seems like the way that's going to go. There was many people had considerations about how much use a path like that might get and what the cost might be and what the trade-off would be in terms of vehicle traffic coming and going to give up a downhill lane there for that. But the thing that was interesting to me was that 75% of the people that responded to that question of what's your main concern about the way that is now was the lighting on the road, which last time we met, Jesus said he wasn't sure how many people. I was surprised, actually, that there were as many people claiming to walk and run and cycle and scooter on that road as do. But evidently, there's more than just a couple. And as I say, we're not inviting people to cycle and exercise, but we're not banning them from cycling or walking. Or so I think we really have to consider public safety, and we discuss this at our next meeting. That's.
I'd like to make just add on to that is it's not just a recreational path, it's also a path for people coming and going from work. Servers, bartenders, cleaners, people that can't afford a car or had their driver's license taken away or too young to drive, take that path to get to work. That's not an optional thing. That's a sustenance thing, and that's a right. So, and that's also written into the report. And that's something we need to keep in mind also when we're talking about lighting. There are 3 parts of our city that are divided. And having an automobile-only access is the entire reason that this survey was being done in the first place. Because I personally made an ADA complaint to ADOT. And that's how this whole thing got started. Okay? So it's about access and equity for all citizens.
Okay, you can begin.
ADOT was very positive. Of all of the participants at the webinar, ADOT reminded everyone that roads had to be shared with cyclists and pedestrians, and it was just a question of what the best way to do that would be, not a question really of whether it was going to get done at all. I wish I could remember the man's name from Department of Transportation, but he was saying he didn't think he would be there it wasn't going to happen before he retired, but he wanted to be there for the ribbon cutting, where he would like to be present when the thing got done. So, I just believe keeping the lights on is something that cities do, and Ben, I think you and I feel the same way about that. But we can certainly talk more about this in March when we meet again, and hopefully we can meet in person.
Yeah, in person would be nice. If I could, Mr. Stone, I'd like to add something to this discussion. I am and this is somewhat personal, but I'm an expert cyclist. I don't know if any of you all know, but I do it competitively. And while I agree that this road should be a shared road, I don't believe that ADOT, and I don't believe it's a good idea to share it in the condition that it's at. When I mean that is the slope. That slope of this road is extreme. I've cycled down this thing, and if you aren't experienced driver cyclist, I recommend it. So hopefully ADOT will come up with a good plan. ADOT, this study, we can come up with a good plan so that the slope of cyclists can go down this road in a manner in which everybody can manage it. But again, this is my personal opinion. It has nothing to do with engineering. I would not recommend going down that unless you're very experienced.
Cynthia.
Yeah, just one other thing, and that is, that seem, Larry, as you get the quotes back and work with all the people you're working with, that if we decide we do want to pursue the lighting of it, it would be, we wouldn't want to put don't we have that caveat of the bright light? We can't turn bright lights back on. We have to have the reduced wattage or whatever they're called, the low light, blah, 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 don't we? I mean,
you're talking about dark sky ordinance?
The dark sky ordinance, yes.
The dark sky ordinance, what that says is you can't have the light shining up. As long as we're shining down, we're okay.
Okay. All right. I want to clarify.
And
with that,
while we're talking, you, I think, suggested exploring the possibility of paving the Walsh Avenue parking lot.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I'm not sure about paving the parking lot, per se, because the parking lots, I guess my question is this. The Walsh Avenue is actually symbolic of the question of parking in Bisbee and parking lots in Bisbee. And so when I was on planning and zoning a few years back and throughout the years, the parking issue always comes up. And someone told me that someone said, so I'm trying to clarify here, maybe with Jesus, that parking or not parking questions and parking lots are not parts of streets and infrastructure, that it somehow belongs to DRB. And so I keep getting mixed messages. And to me, of course, I would suggest that we say that parking questions and parking lots and infrastructures and streets, that belongs to us to discuss and propose to the chief of police and the city manager and Jesus how we might want to deal with that. So I just wondered what the history of that was, because I had heard it another time when I was attending another committee that they somehow felt, and Ben, I believe, is on that committee, so maybe he has an opinion on this, parking lots such as Walsh or streets or blah, 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 is that us, streets and infrastructure, or is that somebody else? Question mark. Anybody know or care to tell me? I haven't read the whole city code on it. But
I would think that that's a infrastructure issue, and so this is the Streets and Infrastructure Committee. So I would think that, much my understanding, and I may be wrong too, but it's my understanding that the DRB has more of oversight on aesthetics. So if we were going to do something with parking, wanted to do some sort of wall or some sort of monument sign, that would have to go before DRB. But I believe that parking is an infrastructure issue.
Yeah, I agree with Jesus on this one because I'm the chair of the DRB. And no, parking is not under our purview. Even if people like to force their neighbor to get parking, that's not really our prerogative. So
I wanted to just bring it up as a discussion. And so the discussion of parking and paving the Walsh Avenue parking lot or any other ones is just something that I'm very interested in, just like Larry is very interested in the lights, and I'm not interested in the lights. But that's why I wanted to kind of get this on the agenda, because I don't know if we can move forward again with Jesus, as he said earlier. Hey, the little parking area around the pool, which is used by a lot of people and has a lot of interest and a lot of asset building and fundraising ability for the city, I believe. So do some of these other parking lots that have been left to where the people who park there think they own it. And so I think the city needs to improve its signage, improve its paving of these spaces, improve its whatever, because it would benefit the citizens as well as non-citizens. It's just can't be left the way it has been for the 35 years that I've lived here, where whoever gets there first claims it is theirs and everybody else lets them. I mean, that's just my opinion.
I think on that note too, Cynthia, it helps with security issues as well, which, helps protect the citizens.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Walsh Avenue is a classic example of something that's gone for 30 years. I don't know, as not being attended to. I don't know why. Other spots have been. I don't know what makes somebody else. I only know what makes me do things. So that's why I like to get on a committee like this, where you get a lot of different opinions. You have professional opinions. You have council members of all these citizens here.
So
one of my things that I'm interested in.
There's another parking lot that I'm going to call the Opera parking lot up above Walsh.
Right.
Does that parking lot have a name? But I think both of those parking lots should be considered together. When you think about paving or signage or like that. And I was up there at that Opera parking lot 2 weeks ago, and there was just one parking space that was left open. There are 3 or 4 vehicles up there that have expired plates. There's campers up there. It says no overnight or no camping or something. I think maybe the sign ought to say no overnight parking. Those lots, as you say, Cynthia, have been turned into storage lots for, I imagine, neighbors that live nearby. But I think they ought to be used as city parking, which is what they are. And when we first met a couple years ago, Jesus said we could put some additional signage out to direct people to those parking lots, so that they're not just, driving up and down Tombstone Canyon Road looking for a parking place. They could be guided to a place. Between those two parking places, those two parking lots, I believe there's 20 parking spaces, which would be, more than 10% of what we have now.
Well, actually, between those 3, because Walsh Avenue has 2 parking lots, and the one you're mentioning is quite large. And again, because of being a truck driver, I can tell you that those 3 lots together, just off the top of my head, and David, you'd have a really good opinion on this, having managed a parking lot in Bisbee, I think more like 60 cars will fit up there.
Comfortably.
Possibly paved and lined and signed. So we're looking at 60 places. Would be.
Yeah, you're looking at about 45 easy without striping and letting people free park on their own. And if it's paved or constructed in a way, where it's actually thought out, then you can maximize about 10 to 20%.
Yeah. So I just think, because again, assets, my answer always is, no matter what I serve or what I do, the question becomes, how do you pay for it? And how you upkeep it, and how can it earn money for the city of Bisbee? And I would rather see parking lots earn money than us being fined and feed to death, on little tiny itty bitty things, when we're throwing away money by not organizing the assets that we have. And that's always been in all the trainings I've ever been to here for years. Freeport tried to tell this city for years, hey, you got to learn how to pay your own way. And I just think infrastructure and streets we could eventually, over time, not right away, figure out a way to actually contribute to the welfare and the money that the city can take in from tourists. And as far as, I think, Larry, you just said, some of those parking lots residents do use, and I'm not saying residents shouldn't be able to use them, but there might be a way where one resident doesn't use 4 spots because he has 4 cars and he uses his bus for storage, you know? That's the problem. There's no commitment to organization. There's no continuing philosophy for the city to organize its assets, i.e. streets and infrastructure. So that's my concern.
While we're on that topic of paying our own way, it's a great time to remind ourselves that this 1% money that we're getting for streets and infrastructure is not going to be perpetual. It's going to come to a vote again sometime in the year 2022 to renew the 1%. We're taking in more than half of our budget here for the streets and with the 1%. And if we don't get it renewed, it's going to be not as good as it is now, I'm afraid. And I think that everybody is interested in more parking places in Bisbee, whether they're paid to park or whether they're just paved and striped and the weeds are pulled. And so I think that's a wonderful example of something that the committee could do in order to promote the 1% sales tax renewal that we'll be facing, just a little bit more than 12 months.
Right, because if we don't do anything, then we can't say we've done anything. And then if you can't brag on yourself and get free publicity, and if we just put it on the city, meaning the staff, meaning Jesus, well, then the citizens go, we don't like that person, we don't like the city, we don't like this. But if the group of us known as a committee of interested citizens and the people we can each reach out to individually, we could move these kinds of questions more forward and we can discuss them. So I'd like to put parking and paving and asset building on the next agenda so that we don't completely lose this ability to move this idea forward. Because until we agree, we can't give it to the mayor and council, I don't think. So we have a plan, I guess I should say. Whether we agree or not.
I'd like to just butt in real quick and for the new committee members, there was a U of A parking study that was done a couple of years ago that me and Mark Appel helped coordinate that effort. And Walsh Avenue was on there as a very low-hanging fruit for improvement for parking, along with some other ones, as in the cheapest way of adding parking. Another recommendation for Walsh and for up by the Iron Man statue was to have signage, purple signage or blue signage that stands out that tells tourists who are unfamiliar, who are clogging the main roads, that there's parking in this direction, and when they walk a long distance back, they see the other businesses and so on and so forth, and our downtown is a little bit less congested.
And along that line, I will say that Bisbee Vogue Inc., the nonprofit that puts on that event, if you go to our site, we have parking maps. We're the only people that I know of that have developed and published and have online suggested parking spots. And so other low-hanging fruit are just all these places, that people don't know exist. But for our event, we drive them. We drive, 1,200 cars, and we've never had a problem. I mean, they go out to the pit outside of town, but they come into town and they fill these spots because we point them to them. And so I want us to improve them so that when we point them there, instead of getting 20 cars in, we could actually get 50 cars in that same spot because we've paved it and lined it. And I think Walsh is that way. And like Larry said, Opera Drive is that way. And there's a place up Higgins Hill that's that way. So we should take the little bit we have and capitalize on it, I think. But the committee would have to decide to do that. You could look at our parking map if you want sometime, because we actually have to scale. So it's at 1000.org. You can take a look.
Okay, we're down to our last agenda item here. Monica Patience, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
I put that on there for you. I couldn't quite find the place. You were directing me to look to. Monica's got a says there's some kind of historical detention pond or something that could be
Reservoir. Far up in Zacatecas.
Up by Zacatecas Canyon.
Yes, going further up there is a big reservoir that collects water. But what's happening is that one of the walls needs to be repaired because the water doesn't stay in it. The water would fill up to half the size, but if it was repaired, the water could be contained, and it's a huge reservoir. And that would stop a lot of water, I think.
Are you talking about the end of Zacatecas Canyon and above?
Yeah, it's you keep on going up Zacatecas quite a while. It's something that's been and I think what they did to that wall, they broke it because some child drowned there about maybe 100 years ago.
The problem with that is I believe that's not City of Bisbee property. That turns into county and then Freeport.
It's outside of city limits.
I don't know, but there are a lot of walls up there, lots of walls that kind of needs to be repaired, I think, because that would certainly help the water coming down.
Right.
There's lots and lots of walls up there, barriers.
Right. Area to hike in, but I don't think the City of Bisbee property.
I went up OK Street looking for that, and we're talking about up past the end of OK Street, yes?
No, you go up Brewery Avenue and keep going. Brewery Avenue is where, and into Zacatecas, and keep going that way.
Is there some kind of public right-of-way there that I might be able to hike it? Somebody gave me directions, and they said you used to be able to drive up through there.
Maybe, but the best thing is to just take a walk up that way. It takes you can go up there and back in about an hour.
Is it up there past the cross?
No, you don't go to the cross at all. You stay in the Brewery Avenue.
Okay.
Down on the bottom of Brewery, past the most recent light that's been put on it. So you go past Miramosa Market all the way to the back of the road.
You just keep on going.
It's just dry.
Right.
And then there's a dirt path there.
I can guarantee you, having lived here 30 plus years and hiked there, it is not city property.
Yeah, it's not city property. One good thing is Department of Environmental Quality is doing a water quality and assurance test along all of that waterway up there.
Great.
If it shows to have a certain amount of certain types of contaminants in it, those things will probably get fixed anyway. I'm part of the group that's kind of doing that around here. It's a different set of scientists actually doing the water monitoring on Brewery Gulch. I'm doing it on Greenbush Draw for them, but they are actively monitoring the water quality. If it shows to be high enough in E. coli, they'll put in all sorts of retention type things and to slow and settle the water down to keep the E. coli from getting down to the San Pedro River via that route or into Whitewater Draw via that route. So they're probably excited about it.
Because I think that the flooding in downtown Bisbee would stop quite a bit if those walls and that reservoir were fixed.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
You're right. Yeah, you're definitely right. Yeah.
That's what they're there for.
There's millions of dollars of the grant money out there to do that, but you have to prove there's E. coli in that water, and once you prove there's E. coli in the water, then you can do things like, well, in other areas that they found this in, they're out there not Palominas. Well, anyway, we're getting off subject. Anyway, ADEC is already doing remediation projects for just that in other parts of the state, down along the Santa Cruz River and stuff. So, and they're working this way with it. So, eventually, hopefully, we'll see some of that stuff getting fixed. It might be 10 years, but
But every year the road up in Zacatecas gets flooded. Not this year because there hasn't been any floods, but
No
if
rain.
that and down in Bisbee, there's all kinds of water. But if that reservoir were, I think it would help.
Jesus, when I was talking to you about this, you said that there was some kind of structure up that way that might need remediation or something to, alter that runoff. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't. The only thing I don't know the structure that you're referring to. I know that Cynthia mentioned that it's not city. It's not. Once you get to you take up Brewery and the concrete ends, then it turns into a dirt road. And there's a lot of the rocks and stuff. That actually is a private mining claim, and so the city would have a hard time doing something with that.
I went up that dirt road, and I thought maybe it would be a candidate for paving. But as you say, if it's a private road, then we don't have to worry about that. But
yeah,
so
we could. If they
It's a river bottom.
It is.
It's a creek. It's a creek bed.
If the private mining claim owner decided they wanted to dedicate that as public right-of-way, and the city council accepted that as public right-of-way, then we can spend public money on that.
There's like half a dozen.
Public money on private land.
Talk to Cato Daly. She lives up there. Maybe she'll do that.
I definitely have talked to Cato.
Yeah, it's past Cato's house.
Yes.
Keep going by her house further up.
There's like
keep
half
going.
a dozen houses up there. Are
Yes.
there not?
Well, but it's about two more houses past her house.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, Monica, I'll definitely hike up that way before our next meeting, and isn't there some kind of city, boundary or something, or stake, or
No, it just keep on going. You just come to what I call the rocks. There are two houses there, and there are some rocks, and just walk over the rocks and keep on walking on that road, and you get to that big reservoir, and even further up there are barriers and all kinds of things, but they seem to be all dilapidated. Nothing has been repaired for many, many years.
Oh yeah, there's like at least a half a dozen or more of them that go up the creek. You used to be able to drive up there.
Well, if you have a high car.
I talked to the city manager about that area last year. I was talking to Jesus about moving some boulders around and flattening out for the poor people that live up there. And she mentioned that she's working on having that area become reserved as a and if she can do that, maybe she already has, then that opens the door for some potential grant funding. An example of a grant. Yeah, so an example of a project that was funded with a grant, CDG grant for flood control, is Tin Town. That project is now a town, or almost finished. Town was
I would certainly think it would fall under flood control, and also for flood insurance for all these people that live around that road.
Yeah, because the Brewery Gulch is actually a paved over river bottom. That's actually the drainage ditch is the road, and then it runs into the channel under the highway there by the Lyric Theater. It's interesting.
I think that if some of those were maintained, some of those retention basins were maintained, the city would potentially save money on maintenance.
Yes, I believe so. Save a lot.
Yeah, they
want cleaning out debris of boulders every monsoon, multiple times a year. There's the city has to come there and so on and so forth. So having those retention basins maintained, I think.
Yeah, those are all WPPA works too. So
they were definitely there for an engineered reason.
Well, maybe it would be in our enlightened self-interest to see if we couldn't find a crew that might be able to go up there to repair some of that stuff, even though it is the county stuff. I mean, maybe the Department of Corrections could send some of their workers up there for that. I know, Jesus, you don't like working with those guys, but they want to work.
They're all sitting down.
All right. Well, I understand that the Department of Corrections are giving the vaccination to the inmates, and once the inmates get the vaccination, they'll be able to come back out and help us with our brush control and all of that stuff. You know, if you're interested, I could ask somebody about the possibility of them, even if it's not a city project. You know, maybe they could do a little county work. I don't know.
I'm going to get a little controversial here, but I'm going to say, why don't we give American citizens the COVID vaccination and have them get jobs cleaning up the brush on the side of the road? They could use the money, you know.
It's that the congregate living facility.
Anyway, that's enough of that conversation.
All right. Well, I think we've come to the end of our new business, and then this is the opportunity for members to make comments. Is there anyone that wants to make a comment before we shut this down tonight?
I just had a quick question about the lighting there around Highway 80. So I know we discussed and are going to look at coming back to that after we have a little more to base that off of next meeting. But in the interim, is there something that can be done, even if it's not fully, lighting the whole way, but to at least have it partially lit in the meantime while we are working out what will be done?
That wasn't one of the all the things that APS said that they could do for us. We could fix the 5 broken lights at a cost of $425 a light. You know, convert them from high pressure sodium, burnt out bulbs to new LED bulbs, or we could do the 10 or 11 lights. Same cost, just more lights to fix, and Jesus wants to go before the city council to present that, since they had voted to turn them off almost a year ago now, I guess. And so if you'd like, I don't know, I think we all have to get together and agree on what it is that we want to propose to the city council and the mayor, the new mayor. But it looks like it'll be 60 days anyway. You also have to apply for a permit with the Arizona Department of Transportation to get the traffic safety crew out there. But according to APS, because it's a maintenance type thing, it won't take as long as the permit did to you repair the water main there under Route 80 there, just by Erie Street last year. So I think it is something that we should get started on. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ben?
Yeah. Sorry. On that subject, even if there's other plans for Highway 80, those are years out, so many years.
We didn't put a vote on the agenda for this meeting, so there's nothing to vote on, I'm afraid. But we can talk about this again in 60 days, and at that time we can have a vote.
Right. So you'll put discussion and vote on the lights, and we'll put discussion and plan on parking and parking areas, if I can say that. Okay? So we can move those forward where we can discuss and plan or discuss and vote, right? We're not probably ready to vote on the parking thing, but we can plan all of that.
Right. I don't think we're ready to vote on the lights either. But our next meeting is March 25th. I'm hoping and praying that we can get together in person, but we might have another one of these. And anyway, I think we're pretty clear about what the agenda is going to be for that meeting. If anybody has anything else that comes up before that, give me a call or email me, stone@centurylink.net, and we'll get it on the agenda for March 25th.
Yeah, I'd like to add drainage on Tombstone Canyon, changes changes because of changes in asphalt height.
Uh-huh.
And
Okay.
any rectifications and liabilities thereof.
I also have a little comment. It just has to deal with the oddities of open meeting law. Now that we have a bunch of people that are interested in this multi-use path on this specific committee, if there's another webinar about it, and more than a quorum of people of this committee want to attend that webinar, we need to submit a what is it called? A courtesy. You have to let Lorena know to submit a courtesy agenda out to let people know that there might be more than a quorum, but we won't be discussing anything.
Absolutely.
That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Day.
Yeah.
That next meeting for the shared pathway around the open pit will be in May. So in March, we'll have plenty of time to get that all together.
Actually, if I just let Lorena know ahead of time and just let her put one out just in case. It's always good just in case. Jesus can do that.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion that we call the meeting to a close, adjourn the meeting?
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, the meeting's adjourned at 7 o'clock. Thanks for participating, and I think we had a lot of good ideas tonight, and I'm looking forward to following up on them in March when we meet again.
Cool. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Yep, bye.
Bye.